I am. And go live. Okay, hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Digital Classroom. But first, I have to say something that is very dear to my heart, of course. I wish you all a much better 2023 than 2022. Unless, of course, in 2022 you won the lottery. Although maybe then in 2023 you will do it even better. So anyway, a few things. Digital Classroom is an interactive live stream. That means if you see the recording, you can still be interactive by just asking questions in the chat. Or, of course, not the chat at that moment, but just the comments. I will answer those questions without any doubt within a few days. But during the photo shoot, you can ask questions. And the cool thing about these kinds of setups is that you actually determine where we go with our live shoot. So I have some ideas, of course. Let me switch over to the big camera, by the way. That's a little bit easier to see. So I, of course, have some ideas about today, but maybe you have something that you think like, hey, Frank, you set something up like that. Why did you do that? Or what kind of cables do you use for tethering? IQwire, of course. Or what kind of backdrop do you use? Clicprop backdrops. Or monitors? BenQ. So as you can see, you can get all the questions answered during the live stream. Just post them in the chat. Now, Digital Classroom is a program that is made possible by actually BenQ for great monitors, Rogue Expo Imaging for, of course, the flash bender, the new umbrellas, which we're going to show you in a moment, and, of course, the magnetic system. And, of course, we also have a partner in Calibrite and, of course, Clicprop backdrops, IQwire, and, well, everything from Studio FD. So today it's about props. And what is a better prop than something that you love to use and that you already have, right? Because then you don't have to buy it. To be totally honest, if I didn't have the gear I'm going to shoot today, this would be an incredibly expensive episode. Or I had to rent or buy some of the, lend some of the stuff. And actually, I think two of the ones that I'm using today aren't even that much available. So today it's all about models and props, and most of all it's about guitars, but then the big ones. So today, models and props. Now, why do I do a photo shoot with models and props? For the very simple reason, you can of course do a normal portrait, which is awesome. You can set up your lighting, you can create something really nice with accent lighting, Rembrandt lighting, butterfly lighting, whatnot more. But isn't it way more interesting to tell a story with an image or try to recreate something? Now, when I was growing up, I loved those metal covers like Queen, Def Leppard, Metallica, all those covers, they were really nicely shot. And of course, especially if you liked Whitesnake, there were a lot of beautiful women in those video clips. So today we're not going to shoot a video clip. Today we are actually going to shoot some of my guitars. And some of my favorite guitars. But I'm also going to show you why we choose the different backdrops and lighting setups by those guitars. Now, during a live shoot, I can never promise you guys that we will have great results for the very simple reason this is live and things can go wrong, especially if you don't prepare anything. And I never prepare stuff because I want to make sure that you guys also see where I fail and how I build up the lighting, because just seeing a lighting setup isn't really interesting. You want to see how something is built up and you want to see where it can go wrong. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I would like to congratulate a few people, like Arie van den Berg, I believe, in a week is...
Arie van der Meer.
Arie van der Meer, of course, has his birthday today. Arie, congratulations. But also Walter.
Yes.
Walter Koopman, congratulations.
One of our biggest fans.
One of our biggest fans and a great guy to hang out with. So, are you guys ready? I think Enoweek is going to take over here. And I'm going to go into the studio. I'm going to grab a guitar. I'm going to grab a model. I'm not going to grab a model. I'm going to let my model grab the guitar. And we're going to do some shoots. So, I am ready. Are you ready, Enoweek?
Yes.
Which live stream is that? Because it's
Facebook.
Oh, okay. You don't see the... Awesome. Great. Okay, Enoweek, if you can take over here. I will grab the camera. And, of course, the light meter and an extra remote. I forgot my extra remote. Let's do that first. Okay. Light meter. Okay, so for the first setup, I have my beautiful model, Claudia. How are you?
Good.
Good, great. Are you looking forward to it?
Yes.
Do you play guitar?
In the past.
In the past, okay. The biggest problems is, of course, when you have a model that doesn't know how to play guitar. I, as a guitar player, I immediately see if somebody knows how to play a guitar or if somebody doesn't. Now, there's a little trick about this. You can, of course, teach a model to hold a bar chord, which is pretty intense. And even when you are an experienced player, you sometimes, it just looks weird, a bar chord. And especially when you know how to play guitar and you don't know, you immediately see, oh, that's a faker. But there's something else, and that's actually way easier to show your model. So let me just imagine that Claudia doesn't know anything about guitars. She knows it has 6 or 7 strings, or maybe 8. Do you know that there are guitars with 8 strings?
Yes.
Cool. And that's absolutely true. So how do you teach somebody how to hold a guitar without doing that difficult bar chord? Well, there was a guitar player very, very long ago, not so long ago, by the way, and his name was Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix changed the whole way of playing guitar. And for us as photographers, it actually opens up a whole different spectrum. Now, if you are a professional guitar player or an advanced guitar player, you know that everybody holds the guitar a little bit different. But there's always this motion between your left hand and your right hand and how you hold them on the neck. So it's very important to fake this the correct way. So let me show you what I mean. So let me just grab a guitar and let me just experiment with an unexperienced player, somebody that doesn't know anything about guitars. This isn't how you hold a guitar, of course. You hold the strap like this and way lower, but hey, I'm a big guy. So a normal bar chord, of course, would be something like this. But a beginner guitar player would do it more like this. And that's where you can see that somebody doesn't play guitar. So how do we overdo this? Claudia, as soon as you have the guitar, you just drop your dump over this, and you just place your fingers a little bit like this, and then you just rest your arm. You don't try to hit it, just rest your arm. This is how Jimi Hendrix played. And the cool thing is, because Jimi Hendrix played like this, he does all this weird stuff in between. So if you hold your hand like this and just place your fingers somewhere, it always looks professional, because this is something, if you do this, you know how to play guitar. So it doesn't really matter what you do with the other hand. This is pretty convincing. Even if you hold it here, all those chords work over the whole neck. But if you start doing stuff like this, it becomes very important how you do this, how you hold the guitar. With this, everything goes, because that's how Jimi Hendrix played. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, be careful. This is about 10,000 euros. How to make your model really nervous.
Yeah.
And I guessed pretty right. Awesome. The only thing I have to change very quickly is because I don't want it to drop. Of course, you can play in a drop tuning, but I don't want to drop the guitar. So, awesome. Okay, so for the lighting quality. Now, for my first setup, I want it to be really simple, something that everybody can try and everybody can also recreate. So for the first setup, I'm going to use the most simple modifier you can buy, and that's actually an umbrella. Now, I recently rediscovered the umbrella because of Rogue. We're the distributor of Rogue. Let's make that 100% clear. We are the distributor for the Benelux for Rogue, so we are a little bit, of course, promoting our own product in this sense, but that's not really true. You guys know me. If I don't like something, I don't use it. I don't say anything nice about it. I just ignore the product. The thing is with umbrellas, I think we all start out with umbrellas. And at that point, we don't have the proper control over our lighting yet. The more you advanced in your trade and the more you advanced in your photography, the more you learn how to control your lighting. You learn anything about the placement of the lighting, how important angles are, what feathering is, how to pinpoint your model, how to make your model jump out, everything about inverse square law, distance and light fall off. And that umbrella you actually only use when you're just starting out with photography. So when you look at all those images, the images doesn't look right? It looks terrible. That's because you didn't know how to light yet. As soon as you buy a softbox, it becomes easier. Softbox is easier to control. Then you start using grids, it becomes even easier, but also more difficult to pinpoint that light. But then when you have all that knowledge and you go back to the umbrella, I think you're gonna rediscover an awesome modifier that is very, very flexible. But most of all, it's incredibly affordable. Think about this one. This is a fiberglass umbrella, so no more of those rods that break down or that bend over. This is very, very solid, very, very good. And it also has a sleeve, so it makes the light a little bit softer. And something like this retails in a whole pack with a shoot-through umbrella and this one with the sleeve for about 119 euros on a week, or 103 euros.
Yeah, 109.
109 in euros, including a traveling bag, and that's including 21% VAT. So if you're in a country that doesn't have VAT, below $100, you have a set like this. Now, in all honesty, I'm really honest with this, this replaces a 1.20 centimeter softbox, not a softbox with a grid, but a softbox. There's one thing that I like a little bit more about an umbrella, and that's actually how it works. When you look at a softbox, you have the light behind a diffusion panel, and then you have the front diffuser panel. So that means that you never have indirect lighting. You always have lighting that goes through a diffuser. The diffuser makes the light bigger, and then it goes to the second diffuser, which makes it even bigger. That means that you always end up with a little bit of a hot spot in the center and more spread out to the sides. This is, by the way, how every light source works. So straight in the middle, it's very hard and very bright. More to the sides, it becomes softer and less light output. An umbrella works different. An umbrella actually aims the light towards the umbrella and then floats back into your subject. It looks a little bit like a beauty dish. And why do we love beauty dish? Very simple, because of that indirect lighting. So by using indirect lighting, I have a few opportunities. One, I create a much nicer and evener light flow in my object. So in other words, a 90 centimeter umbrella is about the same as a 1.2 meter softbox. Saves you a lot of space and money. But by changing the distance of the rod, which you can actually do here, you can also create a wider spot or a smaller spot. So you can actually zoom your light just a little bit. I don't expect too much of that, it's just a little bit, but it just gives you just a little bit more flexibility. By using the sleeve, I'm creating a slightly softer light quality. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, the first thing we have to make sure of is, do I want shadows on the backdrop, yes or no? Shadows are very important in a photo to create three-dimensionality. Without shadows, there's no three-dimensionality. So for the first shot, I think I want a shadow on the backdrop. I'm going to light it straight from the front. The only thing I don't want is an annoying shadow on the backdrop. I want something that's cool. So how do you create something that's cool? By just looking at the way that the light is aimed. Draw lines in your mind. So if I have my light high up and my model stands way in front of the backdrop, the light will hit my model and then will hit the backdrop. If I shoot from a slightly lower angle, there will be no shadow. If I let my model stand like this, a little bit in front of the backdrop, and I place my light not too high, there will be a shadow behind her. In this case, we're going to place the light high up, aim it down, and we'll just have a little bit of shadow on the side. But first, straight on the model. So let me grab a power cord. And of course, turn on the strobe. Tight. Okay. Now, I'm using an Expert 500 from Hensel. Let's just aim it up. There we go. So the first is a pretty simple standard lighting setup, a little bit like a butterfly lighting. And of course we have a lot of light in our studio now, so it's a little bit hard to... it's one step forward. That's perfect already. There we go. Okay, let's first meter the light. That's always something we do. Okay. Now, with an incident meter reading, always hold it in front of the area you want correctly lit. Let's set ISO 100, because that's what I'm shooting with. Hold it in front of the area you want lit. Fire the strobe 1.45. What do we want? F4? I think so. 5, 9, 10. Let's try that again. 2.08. Oh, went the wrong way, sorry. Now, of course, you can take test shots, but that doesn't make you look really professional, right? In essence, you can better just set it up before the client is there with a light meter and then just fine-tune it a little bit. It just looks way more professional. Okay, Anne-Wiek, if you can switch over to picture-in-picture. I'm going to shoot from a slightly angle. And this is my first shot. It's not going to be great. But as you can see, it already gives me a little bit of depth because I have that backdrop. Let me just see what's going on, why the image doesn't come in. One moment, I think I know why. I still have that first image on. So let's close that one Hey, let me connect to my camera again. It's probably because you switched the power on, Annemiek.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's reconnect to Sony. There we go. This should be fine.
Again.
I'm shooting to the iPad Pro with Cascable. And the nice thing about that is the iPad Pro never runs out of battery during a shoot. Unless you didn't charge it, of course. But there we go. I think the image will come in now better. There we go. Now, as you can see here, it's not that interesting yet. It's actually... Annemiek, can you click on the first image, please, that it stays big? There we go. It just lacks everything. And what do I mean with everything? It doesn't add that real atmosphere. It has that really nice head on, so why don't I shoot it? So let me take a little bit of a step back. And let's do this. There we go. This is already something that I like more. We go like, okay, if I really have to choose something, I would go for this. But in all honesty, do you really like... Annemiek, can you please not do that?
Ik doe niks.
Okay, can you please turn on the last image again? Okay, one moment. Let me try it from this angle. It doesn't work, so from this angle it works great. And there we go. Okay, so overall, when you look at the images, we have a very flat lighting quality. I will see why this happens. This is really annoying.
Gaat zelf terug.
Okay, let me see what's going on. Okay, one moment. Let me go here, settings, photo review. Ah, there we go, manually. There we go, that should do it.
Okay.
Okay. So although I like the images, I don't like the quality of light at all because it's too straight on. So let's fix that first. Now when I look at the guitar, it points that way. So that means that for my lighting, I would prefer my light to do the same thing. Also go that way. So in this case, we're going to take our light source. I hope this works out. There we go. I'm going to place it next to my model. I'm going to remeter. We're just going to see what happens. And it's pretty high up. So that means I'm covering a lot of area. Okay, 4. So now I have more direction in my lighting. I can also shoot a little bit more straight forward. There we go. A little bit more direction in the lighting, but still, when I look at the shot, it's not something where I go like, oh, I spent my whole afternoon watching Digital Classroom. Those images were amazing. It's more like, I have nothing to do, let's look at an episode. And I really want you guys to be a little bit more enthusiastic about the shot. So how do you do it? First of all, building contrast. For me, that's very important in a shot. Now when you look here, the contrast is already there. You see almost a Rembrandt triangle. I still need a little bit more light in her eyes. But in all honesty, I want my model to jump more from the backdrop. I do like it, but not yet. So the first thing I want to do is I want to control my light fall off. There's something called the inverse square law. Light falls off over the distance. In essence, that means that the closer I place my light source to my model, the faster it will fall off. So that also means that when I look at my setup now, it's pretty far away from my model. So let's fix that first. By just lowering the strobe, that also helps by lighting our eyes. There we go. And go really, really close. Hello.
Hi.
Are you scared yet?
Almost.
Almost. Awesome. And we're going to place it even more to the side of my model, aiming it slightly away from the backdrop. Look at this. Isn't that awesome? That's the right expression. We will see. 4.09, that's f5.6. So by placing it closer to my model, I'm actually raising a full stop. Do you imagine that? And it was hardly any movement at all, but still a full stop more. So 5.6. Okay, let me see if I can get everything nicely in. Focus on her eyes. Oh, that's much nicer. So now when I look at the backdrop, I get a little bit more excitement in my shot. I think this looks way better. Only there's this little problem that I need a little bit more lighting on the other side of my model, right? I want a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit of action there. So let's just grab another strobe. But first, let's move this one a little bit further away, so that it's out of the frame. There we go. And let's use a strip light on the side. I'm not going to play with lens flares at the moment, just a small strip light, just to open up the shadow areas just a little bit. Doesn't always have to be lens flares and colors. We still have a few shoots to go. Okay, now with my accent lighting, I do exactly the same as I do with my normal strobes. By feathering the light away, I actually aim the light towards the camera and not towards the model. You can get a little bit of a nice lens flare there, especially when you use those black mist filters or black diffusion filters, which I absolutely love to use. It just gives that a little bit of extra. But there's also something else. When you use the side of the lights, you use the softest quality of light. And that means that when you have hairs or something like a nitro paint, it doesn't reflect that nasty, that real shine is gone. By angling that light, you're actually using that side, and it gives, even on a guitar that's very shiny, it just gives it a nicer shine instead of that really bright hot spot. You can still get a hot spot, by the way, but it's a little bit easier to prevent. Okay, now of course we want the guitar and the model. So I'm going to aim my strip a little bit like this. And now it's up to cooking time. You might wonder, Frank, what the hell is cooking time? Very simple. For almost all my images, I use a light meter. I always try to meter the light correctly and set everything up the way that it's supposed to be. But perfect sometimes isn't perfect. Sometimes you want a little bit more or a little bit less to create atmosphere in your shots. So by angling the light away, you create softer light. By angling it towards the model, you create harsher light. But that base exposure still determines if your image is captured correctly, yes or no. The side lighting is something else. For example, with a white guitar, white shirt, white cap and a fair-skinned model, it doesn't really make any sense to overpower that backlight because then everything will blow out. But for example, with a dark-skinned model, darker clothing, bright reds in clothing, it can help to give a little bit of an extra boost on that backlighting. So that one is set up with a light meter. The other one is just cooking. Just seeing what I like and when I like it. Okay. Ooh, she's very tight between two light sources now, so I have to crop that out later in Photoshop. But look at the difference. Now we have just a little bit more openness on the side, and I think it is a little bit too little. So I'm going to place this one out of the frame, just a little bit, and it means that I can also open it up. Let's do something crazy. 1.5 stops extra. Do remember I also placed it a little bit further away. Okay. Oh, this I really, really like. I see the images a little bit before you guys. Okay, now when I look at the image, I go like, ooh, almost there. And the only thing that I miss is I would love a little bit more light on that chin line. Jawline, that's the one, not chin line. If you have a chin line, that's very, very bad. Okay, let's try that one again. So raised it another half stop. Ooh, that's a little bit too much. Yeah, that's too much. Okay, let's lower that. There we go. And of course we already have the color checker in the back. No, I'm just kidding. Gonna shoot that one too. There we go. And look at how much an angle difference, how much the difference an angle makes. Ooh, difficult sentence. This one I like, but when you shoot it straight on, I like this a little bit more. But still, I think it needs a little bit more. In this setup, it's not so bad to overexpose actually a little bit. So let's just lower my aperture to 4.5. I should be shooting on 5.6, by the way. I was shooting on 6.3, excuse me. I think my thumb hit the dial. Okay, let's fit her on the backdrop. There we go. I think this looks a little bit nicer. A little bit overexposed. And now what you can see is that one needs to be toned down. There we go. As mentioned before, I am intentionally overexposing now because I wanted a little bit of a highlight, or how do you call it, high key look. Okay, let's do it from this angle. Nice. So overall, I think this looks okay. It's still not spectacular enough, I think. What do you think? It's not really spectacular, right? So let's change our light source just a little bit. Let's angle it away even more. So let's move it a little bit forward and angle it all the way back from the backdrop. There we go. Grab the light meter. Now make sure that this one is off. So actually, if you use that cam, Annewie, can you see the lighting setup on that cam? Or the high cam?
No, but I have the high cam.
Literally, the model is here, the light is aimed approximately here. So it's totally different. But look at the impact that has on our backdrop, but also on the contrast on our model. And of course, the image quality. 4.04. Okay, so let's go up to 5.6. There we go. And a little bit over, because I like that, in this case. Okay, I'm going to shoot it now on 5.6 again, just to get a reference. And this is without my strip light on the back. There we go. Now I like this way better. Look at the backdrop. See that really nice angle of light? There we go. Now we're building something. Let's turn this one on. The reflections on the guitar are a little bit too much, but we'll take that out later by just angling the guitar. And she already did, so they're already gone. Look at this. Now I see way more depth, and you see that the strip also lights the backdrop just a little bit. So from this setup we can shoot some images. Let me just try that. Nice, love it. Look a little bit towards the lighting, yes. Nice, and of course slightly lower angle. Look at the difference that makes. I love those lower angles. Okay, let me just give it a little bit more room. And as mentioned before, we will crop out the light sources later, but I just love to have them that close by. And that sometimes means that you have to clone them out later, especially when you're in a little bit of a tight space like here. Ooh, love it. But hey, that's just one guitar. Can you quickly change?
Yes.
Oh, should I help you with that one? There we go.
Yeah.
There we go, we have it. Okay, that's just one guitar. Let's change a little bit. Now, one of the things that's really important in a set is, of course, set building. So, what is set building? Now, the backdrop, it's block from ClickPro backdrops, and I really like that backdrop. But the backdrop also has some challenges, and that's all those straight lines. So that means that you have to be very careful about how you place your camera. Most of the time, straight on works best. Another thing that I like about the backdrop, by the way, and that's just in between, is that now it's literally in vertical, but you can also mount those backdrops in horizontal versions. So then you have way more space to the left and the right instead of up. In this case, we're just using it vertical. So it means that I'm a little bit more tight, but that actually works best with the shot we're doing now. So let me first take out the camera. And let's just bring in one of the props. I'm going to place my lighting a little bit further away. Bring in a red chair. Oops. There we go. Let's not do that too close to the backdrop. Just a little bit further away. Let me see. So I'm already looking at where I'm going to place this, because I also have to shoot it, of course, and the model is still changing. So I think I'm going to shoot from this angle, maybe a little bit into the light. So let's just use only that strip light from the back, or maybe the strip light is a little bit too little. So let's use the umbrella from the back. That's a tongue breaker. So let's not use the strip light. Let's use the umbrella. Now the reason I'm opting for the umbrella at the moment is because I also want some lighting on the backdrop, and I don't want to use two light sources. By using the umbrella, by angling it, like you saw in the previous shot, like you see now, I can literally just create something on the backdrop, but also light my model. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's take this one. Oops. Oh, I would love wireless power. All those cables on the other ends. There we go. Okay, let's aim that towards our chair. And a little bit away from the backdrop. So I'm going to create something like a backlighting here. The model is going to sit there. I think this looks pretty okay. Maybe just aim it a little bit more down. And in a dark studio, you can literally just see the light falling off on the backdrop. I can't see that now, but I think this will be it. Okay, let me take a quick sip of a drink, and then we're going to continue with our next set with our model. Are there any questions, Annewiek?
Not really.
Okay.
Although Ineke is asking if you can do this with an X as well.
I have a lot of X's.
Or a cup of tea or toilet paper or something more challenging.
Actually, more challenging than a guitar with a nitro finish. Oh my god. Guitars are actually very challenging to shoot, especially when you look at a shot like this. And this is one of the disadvantages of a live shoot. I would never accept an image like this because it glares way too much. And that's because this is a guitar that has a very, very shiny coating and a very shiny fretboard. So in essence, can you do this with all the props? Yes, you can. And you can actually make it easier because these guitars are incredibly reflective. So yeah, that makes it harder. For the next set, however, we're going to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, one of the things that I love to do is, of course, combine stuff. So when we were experimenting with, for example, shooting guitars, I always like to include a pedal. Or I like to include something like a microphone or maybe a lens flare. But that's not always possible. So how do you create something in a set with all the stuff that you already have? Well, we all have practice amps, right? If you play guitar, you have a practice amp. But there's also something else. In the previous shots, you didn't see me connecting a cable. And sometimes people complain about this, like, hey, there isn't a cable on the microphone, or hey, there isn't a cable on the guitar. And I think Steve Vai said it best. Dude, it's a video clip. Of course we're not plugged in. And I think it's the same for the images. But because we got some remarks from people like, hey, there's no cable in the guitar, what did we do? We actually brought a cable. But first I'm going to turn off the heating in the ceiling. It's really hot. There we go. Okay, how far is Claudia, Annewiek? Because I'm ready for it. Okay, so I'm going to sit here for a second, and we're going to start... Oh. Let me start very quickly explaining something about the shot. I think that's easier to do now. Okay. Let's switch over to my camera. Okay, so let me switch over to picture-in-picture. Let me explain very quickly what I mean. When I look at this shot, I see that there's way too much shine on the guitar itself. So... Hello. So if I had to choose, I would definitely go for something like this. As you can see here, there's no more reflection on the guitar. So this for me looks way better than this one. So when you say like, can it be easier with, for example, a cup of tea? It's way easier. Guitars are terrible to shoot, but it's so cool. Let me see. I like the dress of Claudia. Great styling. Wait till you see the next one. Hello from Malta. Hello Mario from Malta. Always nice to see people from abroad, of course. Has a split light scheme in her face. Yes. Okay, that's something that I want to point out. Split lighting can be beautiful, and I love it when you do it like a little bit of a jawline, maybe a Rembrandt triangle. Then split lighting is great. The way that I don't like split lighting is actually, we call it in the Netherlands stangverlichting. I don't know the exact determination for it in English, but it's where you actually, of clamshell lighting. Maybe that's something completely different, sorry for that. But what I mean is two strip lights straight from the side. It's something that I also did when I started out with photography. Somehow you didn't compute it. If you just place one softbox in front of your model, you get the effect that you want. So what you try to do is do it with 2 strip lights. And you have this nasty, like dark, shadowy area here, and then 2 perfectly lit sides. It looks absolutely terrible. The thing that you can do with that same light setup is just tilt it. So instead of using it this way, just tilt it, and it becomes a beautiful light source, because then by angling the light, angling your model's head, you can create a Rembrandt triangle on this side, and you can create a jawline on that side. So you're still using that same terrible lighting setup, but by just cueing the light setup and just letting your model angle her head the right way. So for example, this doesn't work, this does work. And of course the hair has to be taken out, otherwise they block the lighting. If you want to see something about that, like the basic lighting setups, just let me know in the comments below, and maybe a next setup we're going to do the very, very basics, like Rembrandt lighting, butterfly lighting, and we're just going to do a shorter version of Digital Classroom where we just explain those simple things. Or, that's even better, if you go to our store, let me do that very, very quickly, some shameless self-promotion, you can actually find the video called the Essential Lighting Techniques. And Essential Lighting Techniques literally starts with everything about the standard stuff. And that's really interesting, I think, especially if you want to know a little bit more about light sources. Okay, I think we are ready for the second set. And Anouika, are you ready for the second set?
Think so.
Think so. Okay, we're going to take one more zip. And then we're going to go on. Awesome. Okay.
Don't forget to use the color checker.
No, I won't. Don't worry. Because that's one of the most important shots. Oh my, that's a totally different look.
Yes.
I would say sit down in the chair, please. Awesome. Now, of course, when we have a different look, we need a different guitar, right? Do you want a different guitar?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Or do you like the Fender?
I don't know.
Or do you like the other one? I like the other one. Now this is a very special guitar. And a lot of guys maybe know me, and maybe they already recognize something about the whole thing. This is a BMG. What is a BMG? It's an OMG, it's a BMG. This is a Brian May guitar, and I'm a huge Queen fan, and one of the things, and I want to do some promotion for this, it's totally fair, I think. A lot of the signature guitars that you guys buy are incredibly expensive, and they don't really perform that well, unless you go for the Jams or the Pias from Ibanez. Those are really great, or a Jiva, but they're all about 1,000 euros, and then it becomes really interesting for a signature series. Brian May actually delivers these for about $7.99, including shipping and a carrying bag. And I think that's for what it delivers. If you want to buy a guitar, maybe this one. It's very, very flexible. And it's the same as the Red Special with all the in and out of phase stuff. It's just the same, only a different bridge. So, if you hold this one. Now this is a nightmare to shoot because this thing is very, very reflective. And I think in all honesty, it's a semi-hollow body, so it's also a little bit bigger. I would move it a little bit, that you get it over your leg. So a little bit more to the back. That sits a little bit nicer and easier. You see that hole? And I would sit like that. Or maybe just pose with it. Let me find something that works. For example, you can hold it like, maybe like this. And just pose with it. Yes, there we go. It doesn't always have to play, right? It's not like, hey, I'm going to show you my new single. No, it's more like, hey, I want to show a great guitar with a cool model. Let's do something cool. And it doesn't always have to be like I'm playing or I'm headbanging. So you can also just be sexy with a guitar. Just be sure that we don't have any looking. Where's the light meter? Over here. Okay. Let's meter the light from the side. 2.89, that's F4, one click. So we're at F4. And now we have a totally different challenge. Because I want to make sure that we have some cool leading lines and a cool guitar. So the first image, I'm going to totally mess up, not by accident. Oh, sorry, on purpose. As you can see here, that doesn't really look nice, right? No. So how do we solve this? Well, first things first. I want to make sure that we are seeing literally, and I'm not shooting on f4 by the way, but I want to make sure that we see literally the whole backdrop. When you look now, I have a lot of the backdrop from the chair, and that means that you see that big black square over there, and that actually means that there's no backdrop there. So that's the first thing we have to change, but also the angle of light. I'm going to keep the same distance. I'm just going to angle it. There we go. And I'm going to change something else. I'm going to go way lower on the floor. And I'm going to literally aim the camera up to create a little bit more depth in my shot. Now when I look at the shot like this, oh, I still have to shoot on f4, sorry guys. Let me do it right. Okay. Now when I look at the shot like this, it doesn't really excite me yet. It doesn't really give me that purpose of, wow, this is awesome. But what happens if I move just a little bit back, a little bit to the side, and use a wider angle? Now look at this, and I'm going to place her all the way to the center. Oh, sorry, to the side. This looks a little bit better, but I'm still looking for something. I'm still looking for something that's more interesting. So from the ground up, it doesn't really work. So how about if I shoot up with the guitar? As you can see, I'm now looking for that magic with Queen. I think this already looks better. And that little bit of a square on the side I can always fix later in Photoshop because I'm not done yet. When I look at this, I go like, yeah, I like that backdrop, I like the model, I like the guitar, but I'm missing something. And that something that you miss is the cable and something else. So let me finish this one. This is a block, and our backdrop is called block, so that's very appropriate. We place it here without destroying it, but it's blue. I don't like blue. I do like blue, but not in this case. So I'm going to use something that's red. And I'm not going to shoot all the way to the floor. So it doesn't really matter that it's not nice on the floor as long as it's nice where I shoot it. And maybe, oh, maybe this can look a little bit nice if you shoot it on the floor. So let's just play a little bit with this. You never know what's going to happen. That's the nice thing about life. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And these kinds of materials you can buy online for like €5 a meter, or they're not that expensive. Okay? So.
Could you re-meter?
Yep, I'm going to re-meter in a moment. I'm going to give a little bit of an amp here. There we go. And of course, for all you complainers, we have a guitar cable. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now we have a Fox amplifier. We have a Brian May guitar. We have an awesome model. Now we have to make it interesting. Challenges. Let's first make the cable nice and disappear behind the amp. We have this. Okay, let's try it from a lower angle. And that little amp for me completes the picture. But yeah, I'm not satisfied yet. The umbrella is awesome. The umbrella is something that you need in your studio. It's one of the most flexible light sources, but it has its limitations. And the limitation is, in this case, I don't want that flat lighting anymore. When I look at this, it's just too busy to be lit flat. And that sounds a little bit weird, because if you use flat lighting, it actually lights the whole set, right? So that makes it more interesting. Yes and no. Watch this. We're going to take this one out. So we're not going to use the umbrella anymore. And we're going to use the strip. And I'm going to use it slightly different than what you think. I hope. Okay. Now the problem that I have is I want close lighting, so I want a quick light fall off. I also want something interesting in my shot. I want some three-dimensionality, so I'm going to ask my model in a moment to just sit forward a little bit more. Oh, this is really nice, like this. Maybe lay your leg over the armrest. Oh, this I really dig. This is nice. Okay, to light this, I want a straight light on my model, but I also want light on the amp, and I want very, very little light on the backdrop, as little as possible. This is one of the reasons I love boom stands. So what is a boom stand? This is a boom stand. You have to have a proper one, otherwise you will kill yourself or your model. And your gear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it actually above my model, aiming it down, all the way down. Is that comfortable or not so? Is it doable?
Yeah.
For about 10 hours? No, right? Okay, I will do it fast. Okay, make sure that it doesn't trip. Okay, let me just move this a little bit more forward. I want to make sure that I hit my model with the sides. Now, with strip lights, I'm going to do it a little bit less. I still want a little bit direction. Okay, come on. Oops. Aggressive. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, so this is a little bit like an angled light, all the way from the top down. So that means that when my model does something, there are two ways that I can make this interesting. By letting her wear sunglasses, I'm not going to do that now, or by literally asking her, look into the light. So not like poltergeist, don't look into the light. In this case, look into the light. Okay. Gonna meter the light, f4.4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're at f4. Now I'm gonna make sure that I shoot on f4, and I'm gonna find something to sit down on. Thank you so very much. So that's better than sitting on the floor. Let me see if this can be interesting. Yeah, put your foot again down. I think that's better, just all the way down on the floor. Yes. Oh, this is nice. Angle the guitar just a little bit like this. Angle it forward. Yep. Yeah, this is better. I want to take a little bit of, I will show you what I'm doing. So when I'm doing it like this, you can see that the reflections really capture that guitar nicely. The reds really pop. And there's a little bit of light on the headstock. That's where I want it. And it's now a little bit more on the neck. So I'm going to ask her to put the headstock a little bit forward. Like this. Yes, perfect. And because the camera doesn't see depth, it doesn't really matter how you angle it, because it looks the same. So as you can see now, we have way too much light on the headstock. So what I'm going to ask you now is tilt it. Yes, you can do that. That's one option. No, this is great. Just hold it like that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, you don't really see the red of the guitar anymore, and I'm struggling with that reflection, right? So how do you solve that? You always have to remember that you have an angle of incidence is angle of reflection. So that means that if I shoot something from a certain angle, I will get that reflection. Now, when I look at this shot, I really like it, but I am missing a little bit of magic. I'm missing that fill-in light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually aim my light a little bit more forward, like here, to get a little bit more of the color of the guitar in. So also do this. Let's do the finishing touch. As you can see here, it's a pretty dark setup. And what do we have here? Here we have our lens flare strobe. And of course we can place it in front of our model, but in this case I think it's way interesting to place it behind, because we don't want it just as a lens flare. In this case I really want it as an accent lighting on both. Oh, let's first plug it in. Somehow that works way better. Okay, let's make sure that it hits the Fox amplifier just a little bit. Ooh, there we go. This is nice. And not too high. Nice. Okay. Now a little bit of side information. The white Fox amplifier is actually the copy of a Deaky amplifier. Now if you are a Queen fan and a Queen nerd like me, you immediately now get goosebumps. Because the Deaky amp, I don't know if you realize this, Brian May built his own guitar with his father, right? It's the Red Special, the old lady. But John Deacon, the bassist of Queen, was actually an electrician. And he built the first amp for Brian from an old, I believe it was an old radio. And they recreated that from Fox, that's a brand that Brian later played, of course, the Fox AC30s. And they recreated that total scheme into that amp you see there. So it's a Fox BMG. In all honesty, it sounds really, really bad. But as soon as you connect that guitar, it sounds exactly like the first albums of Queen, that really nice nasal tone. The magic happens when you connect an amp like that, that's very cheap, to a big cabinet with four 4x12s. That thing comes alive and it sounds amazing. And it's the same with photography. Sometimes when you put something in context, it works way better than when you just show it without that extra flair. So that little bit of red light, when you look at the images there, that really complement the image. Now that shine on the guitar neck, that is something that you can take out if you really have the time and you start to wiggle around with your lighting. But for now, for the live stream, we're just going to leave it in a little bit. Because it's also not something that I find very annoying. It's actually something that, well, it has something, I don't know what, but I do like it. Okay, so now when I shoot shots like this, I go like, okay, yeah, I'm getting there. I'm really liking this. But I don't think that Brian May will be very impressed.
He did reply to one of your pictures.
Yeah, he did reply to one of my pictures a while ago, indeed. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you remember when I told you guys that sometimes it's also cool to shoot in portrait mode instead of landscape mode? Everything I shoot is mostly in landscape. Sometimes portrait works way better. I see Enrique already smiling because he always needs images from me in portrait mode. But how about this? I'm zooming out, I'm fitting everything in, and now I'm creating the whole set. And now for me, this becomes way more interesting. This is also why I like that red material on the floor. I like the backdrop. And now that whole image, by just changing the angle, gets a completely different atmosphere. And now it becomes interesting to see what happens when I change my angle. Remember, angle of incidence is angle of reflection. So what happens when I shoot here? Watch the guitar. And watch especially the neck. Do you see that now I get more reds in the guitar and have a little bit more reflections on the horn of the guitar? When I move here, it will be completely different. And that's why I told you guys, like, if you want to get all the reflections out, it is possible. For example, she would be able now to angle the guitar instead of this. She would be angling it like this, and that would take the reflection also out of the neck. So if you can try that, just angle it forward. Yes. And again, a little bit less. You see that? So you are literally in control of your lighting. And that's one of the things that I always tell people. Like, a lot of photographers are not in control of their lighting. The lighting is in control of them. You guys always remember angle of incidence is angle of reflection. The way that C holds the guitar, the way that you shoot, the angle of lighting, the angle of your camera. It all determines on how great or how bad an image turns out. I think we need a little bit more of this. So we're going to go on the floor. Because I want to have something to show, of course, that's really interesting. So lower angle, I like the lens flaring a little bit. And now when I'm totally honest, I think I'm gonna actually include that lens flare. So let's take that light. I know I promised no lens flares, but they're just so awesome. And this is a nice thing about having stuff on the floor. I can now cover it up, so I don't have to clone out my stand. Just make it a little bit more nice. There we go. You can always freak out a little bit in Photoshop later on. But, oh. I almost killed myself. Let's aim that a little bit more towards my camera. And just raise it 3/10 of an f-stop. Because I'm now feathering it slightly. Okay, there we go. Any questions online, Anouk?
No.
Okay.
People like it.
Nice. Oh, I love this. And there we go. So now we have the finished shot. And we just keep shooting a little bit. Angle the guitar a little bit more forward if you want. Yes. I love it. Yeah, let's try a little bit lower even. Now with this setup I have to be a little bit careful because I don't want those blocks to be too much. I have a little bit too much reflection on the headstock. Tilt it a little bit towards me. So move it this way. Yes, that's it. Perfect. There we go. Awesome. And I love the lens flare in the back. Let's do a close-up. Nice. Chin down just a little bit. Oh, love it. Thank you so very much. You can change into the next set if you want. Also, if you don't want. You really need to do it now.
De jas, hè?
Ja. En dan mag je wel over dit heen doen hoor. Okay. Now I need a little bit of a break because we have to set up a lot. So we're going to show you something that is very important, I think. And after that we will be back, I hope. I'm sure. Let me show you something. We'll be right back. Hey guys, and welcome to our studio in Emmeloord. My name is Frank Dorhoff, and today I want to talk to you guys about something that we get a lot of questions about. Hey Frank, how do you like this image? Hey Frank, what can I improve in this image? And of course I love to help you guys out. But online I mostly am limited to just saying, hey, I really like it, or continue like this, or change this. I can only do short images because, let's be honest, we get so many questions. So that's what actually got us thinking. And we started a Patreon. Now what is a Patreon? Well, let me put it this way. Do you want an extensive photo critique every month? Do you want the bed phone, where you can directly contact me with any questions you have? Do you want to be member of a group that's closed off on Facebook that have the same interest as you guys? That isn't about putting people down, but it's actually about helping people progress in their photography and retouching. Well, that's our Patreon. Now, by joining our Patreon, every month you can deliver 1 or 2 images. We're not that strict about it. And I will do a whole video. In that video, I will show you how I would do the retouching, what I would change about the shot, and I give you a whole lot of tips. That video is put online on a closed-off website. And it means that only the guys from Patreon can see that video and help you out. So I help you out, and the whole community helps you out. It's just an awesome way to learn. So, if you like what we do, of course the first thing you can do is subscribe to our channels, leave comments, and smash that like button because we really like it, and tell other people about it. But if you want to do a little bit more and help us out creating the awesome programs you enjoy, like Behind the Closed Doors, Digital Classroom, quite frankly, our upcoming podcast, Beyond Photography with the Dorhoffs, and a lot more, then please join our Patreon. I already know you're absolutely gonna love it. So head on over to the link below and start joining our awesome group on Patreon and get a lot of benefits. Thank you so very much for supporting our work. See you online. Okay, so that was Patreon, and I do want to explain something about Patreon. Now, I love to give stuff away for free. You know that, guys. Even our instructional videos, our preset packs, they're all priced very, very reasonable because I know you can only spend your money once, especially in this period. However, we also have to keep the power on, of course. And we love to give away stuff for free. And thanks to BenQ and Rogue, that's of course possible. And of course Calibrite. The thing is, if you want more, and we have a lot more, we have behind the scenes images, we have, for example, special portfolio reviews. You can send in your images and I'm going to retouch those images for you live, on a video. So you really get a nice in-view in what do I think, how do I process an image. And if you like Digital Classroom, Patreon is about 10 times up because it's very, very personal and it's your image that I'm working on. Now the cool thing about Patreon is if you just want to look and want to see all the images and want to ask questions and interact with the other Patreons, it starts at $1 a month. So $1 a month, and you help us out immensely. Now if you also want your images previewed, just look at patreon.com/Frank Dorhoff. I'm going to show you that very quickly. And let me see where I have it, over here. And we have different tiers. And of course you can go for 50 bucks a month. I love you for that. But most of the guys, if you go for 10 bucks a month, you also get some portfolio reviews. And it's just very, very interesting. And especially the community we're trying to build. I try to respond to images within, let's say, 12 hours. And if you're really into stress, you can always DM me and I will respond right away if I'm not asleep. So Patreon is something you help us out enormously, but it also helps you out creatively, especially when you're still learning. I think it's a very, very powerful tool. Okay, when we look at the images, I absolutely love the images where I'm going a little bit more full. So let me just show you that very quickly. So for example, when I look at something like this, I really, really like it. I also love the reflections. Look at this, there's almost no reflection. And I love the red. Oh my, this looks amazing. You can see the Brian May, you can see the Brian May logo here. This is actually pretty interesting. Determining it's a live shoot, I'm totally surprised to be honest. Okay, so that's cool. But I think I like these images best, where you just show the whole stuff with a little bit of lens flare on top. I love her shoes here. I still get the whole reflection here. I love the Brian May logo. I don't like the reflection here, so let me see if I have one. There we go. And I don't like the headstock there, but what you can do is, of course, take the headstock from this one and put it in that one and don't tell anybody. Or you can just shoot it correctly, Frank. Yes, I know. Okay, this one is okay. This one is okay. So I already have, oh, this one is perfect. Here we go. We have only a little bit of light on the horn. And this is why I let my model tilt the guitar. There we go. Here we have one which is pretty awesome. Now, I always tell models, like when they play with guitars or shiny objects, just angle it towards the light and just take a few shots. You know, when the expression is great on, for example, the final shot, and you don't like the guitar in the final shot, if you shoot it from a tripod, which I didn't do in this moment, but when you shoot it from a tripod or you shoot it from the same angle over and over, you can literally just determine, like, okay, I like the top part of this image, I like the bottom part of this image, cut it out and just place the other one in there. Like, for example, if I really like the expression, which I do, in this shot, I can't do it in the shot that is vertical, right? You get that. But I think overall I'm very happy with the results. And I think it's time, what do you think, Anna Week, to go for the next set?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Nope.
Me neither. But we are gonna do it. And for the next one, oh my goodness. We have our final circle, vintage, pop, whatever from Click Pro Backdrops. What is the name?
It's a disc. Retro disc.
Retro disc. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and for this one, can you please stand next to the chair and make it interesting? Ha! What a question. So let me move this a little bit this way. I think I like this a lot. Just stand next to it. Oh yeah. The Grand Wizard. My goodness, I love this. Yeah. And now a very dirty question. Can you open it up a little bit? I like that even more. That's perfect. Very sexy, but still very wizardy. Now, let me first set up the lighting. And let me do that the conventional way. 45-degree angle, nothing interesting. Just to show you what pose can do. So posing, and of course a little bit of oomph. Okay, so let me just place this lighting here. A little bit high up. Let me just go down. Turn it on, always helps. Boom. There we go. Let's first take the shots without anything. I am already going to show you this for the real guitar fans. You probably know what's going to happen now, because this is a very famous looking one. Ooh. Light meter. And the color checker in a moment. Okay, Are you ready for this? Are you sitting on the edge of your seat? 5.62. Okay, power down, 2. That's 5.6. And let's take a shot. I'm gonna sit here so I can shoot low and high. I think I'm gonna like this angle a lot. I'm gonna use the shins reclaimed in the backdrop a little bit. Okay, let's go 5.6. Ooh, look at the atmosphere of that shot. I love it. It's so intense, Annemiek.
Yeah, but only one leg is missing.
Annemiek, I don't see the image.
It's in the dark.
Do you see the image?
Yeah?
Oh, there we go. I didn't see the image. Okay, so when I look at this is for me a little bit too dark, in all honesty. But you remember, right? Angle of lighting. Okay, so let's change the angle. So let's move this forward. And remember when I told you guys 45-degree angle? That's about this. So you have that high contrast shot, but remember that shot, because that's going to be very important in a moment. And this is the 45-degree safe angle. As you can see with the 45-degree safe angle, let's raise the strobe just a little bit. With the 45-degree straight angle, it actually looks pretty okay. It actually looks red. I learned a new word. But let's be honest. If you talk about a wizard, there's only one guitar player that comes in mind, right? It's not me. No, sorry. More the disappearing act. Now, when you talk about a wizard, there's only one guitar that comes in mind. And one player. And that player changed the history of guitar playing itself. And I'm very proud to actually own one. When I was growing up, I was 16 or 17, the only thing I did was play guitar. And then there was this album, and it was called Passion and Warfare. And the guitar player was Steve Vai. What happened at that time with a 70-year-old Frank? He went totally nuts, and he started playing all the time. Now, Steve Vai, you probably know from Frank Zappa, David Lee Roth, and Whitesnake. But there's one thing that you may not know about Steve Vai. He's not only one of the greatest guitar teachers and greatest guitar players and composers in the world at the moment, he also designed something that was revolutionary for guitars. That was the jam. If you have an RG guitar, it's actually a jam without all the extras. And one of the things that I want to use for this shot is actually the monkey grip. He was actually designing it to do stuff like this during a live concert. Now, of course, we're not going to do that. But we are going to use the monkey grip. Now, the monkey grip actually makes the guitar nice and balanced. But it also gives you something to pose with. And that's freaking cool. So just hold it in the monkey grip.
Yes.
And be careful, it's a pretty heavy one compared to the other ones. Yeah. And look at this. It looks like a handbag, yes. A little bit more tilting. Yes, there we go. Awesome. Look at this. And although I liked the images before, let's be honest. Adding that guitar, look at the difference. Now we're talking about some really interesting shots. Ooh, a little bit too much light on the headstock. There we go. Look at this. Awesome. But hey, we're not done yet. I like it, but I'm not done yet. You remember that lens flare? We really like lens flares, right? Lens flares are awesome. Lens flare is the best thing in the world. I have the idea that it doesn't show the last image, Annemiek. But that doesn't matter as long as it shows the images. Okay. Lens flares. But you can also do something else with lens flares. And I'm going to show you that now. What I'm using here is an Hensel strobe, an Expert 500, with a normal reflector, with a red gel. I'm going to do something that you may not expect. I'm going to place it approximately where I'm going to shoot. There we go. And instead of aiming it at my model, I'm going to aim it all the way at the ceiling. It's a shame these boom stands aren't sold anymore, so if you guys want to know, they are not sold anymore. I'm so sorry. I get a lot of questions about these, and I'm not selling them. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to aim it at the ceiling, and I'm going to just turn it on full power. Let's see what happens. Again, it's so much light now that I don't see anything I'm doing. So I'm just going to figure it out while we go. Luckily, it's close by. Okay, there we go. Oh, perfect immediately. That's a shame, actually. So I love it when things go wrong. Let's close up a little bit. Oh, there we go. Love it. Now let's say that you go like, oh, I really like this. I like the Instagram look of it because you're mixing colors. But I need it a little bit more angry, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more wow. Well, okay, no problem. Now remember when I told you guys that when you use a light meter, you get the perfect exposure, right? Sometimes you don't want the perfect exposure, but you want an exposure that's near and close to what you want. Maybe you want to tell a mood. When you look at movies, not all images are perfectly exposed. They're sometimes intentionally over or underexposed to create a mood. Let's do the same thing here. So I'm now shooting on, what am I shooting on? I believe 5.6. Let's lower that. And I'm going to place the light again a little bit more here. And I'm going to lower the light a lot. So it's now on f8, or sorry, 8. Let's go for f4, 2.8. There we go. Let's aim it back at our model. Create a little bit more oomph from the side. Place this one on full power a little bit closer. And what I'm actually doing at the moment is I'm lowering that strobe to 2.8 to give that strobe more output, because that one is on full power. But I'm not going to go to 4.8. I'm not going to go to 2.8. I'm actually going to raise my ISO to 400. Let me explain very simple. If that one is now 2.8 and I'm shooting it on ISO 100, then on ISO 200 it's 4, on ISO 400 it's 5.6. Still, that strobe will get a lot more power now, so it will be more dominant in the shot, which I actually want in this case. Let's try that. There we go. Now, in all honesty, this is way too much, so I'm actually going to lower my aperture, 7.1. Nice. Love it. And now, because I have so much red here, now I can start actually dialing red in. So in this case, of course, it's way too much. So just lower it 1.5 stops. There we go. This is the balance I was looking for. Love it. Nice. Now when I look at the shots, I think the guitar is a little bit underexposed on the bottom part. So what we're going to do is, because it's a strip light, I'm actually going to lower the light. Lowering the output slightly. Yes, you should remeter. No, I don't do it now. Sorry. There we go. Nice. And now we got the image that I want. Headstock is a little bit too dark. And this is the cool thing about the strip light. You can angle your strip light. So let's do that for the guitar. Remember why I told you guys all that stuff about placing your lights? Now you see it in practice why it works. And again, it's very, very dark. So, very light. So I don't see exactly what I'm doing. I'm guessing it a little bit. But I want a little bit more light on that headstock. There we go. Okay. Let's do it even more. And I'm taking away a little bit of light from the body itself. Okay, let's see. And there we go. Nice. Normally you can set this up in one time. If you use your modeling lights, just angle the guitar a little bit that way. There we go. You see the reflection? I like it on the neck. I don't like it on the headstock. on the neck, it actually gives you something really luxurious. Can you tilt it a little bit that way? Yeah, it feels a little bit weird. Yes, neck that way. And then angle it down. It is difficult, I know, but... There we go, now we have it perfectly. Okay, but now we did it with big strobes. Let's take a break. And let's do it with small strobes. And let's see what we can do with speedlights. So we're going to start a little video for you guys, and then we're going to set up everything for the speedlights. So don't go away, because you're going to love what's going to happen next. And then we're also going to do the color checker and explain it, Anouk. I already have the profile for the handles. Okay, so let me just show you what we mean with speedlights. But first, let me go through these images and show you what I mean. Okay, so when we look at the images here, then let me just go through them very quickly. That's close. Okay. So how we started out was actually a little bit too dark for my taste. Like, I do like it a lot when she doesn't hold a guitar, but it's not something like, hi Chewy, where you want your, look at this guys, isn't this just plain awesome? Oh, you can't see it, sorry. We have this Labradoodle and he's always very close to me. And do you want to go on the, come, 1, 2, come on Chew, op, kom op schoot. There we go, look at this. Say hi. Chewy, look, TV. There we go, hello. Isn't he adorable? Okay, so anyway, can I do my work now? Yeah, can I do my work? What? No, that's a microphone. Don't eat the microphone. Don't eat my hand. No. Anyway, sorry guys. Yeah, that happens when you want to show something. As you can see here, it's all pretty dark. And as soon as you start bringing in the guitar, the whole image just changes. And that's the cool thing about props. I don't say that this image isn't interesting. It's a very, very interesting shot. Goed zo. Gaan we naar beneden. Doe maar. I think he wants a cookie. You want a cookie? There you go. Cool. Main thing of being live, right? So when I look at this shot, it's not that uninteresting. It's actually pretty cool. When you bring in the guitar, this is where for me it really comes to life. But that's also because I love guitars. Look at this. Look at the angles you create, especially with the monkey grip. This is such a cool guitar to photograph. And I highly recommend you guys checking out tomorrow or the day after tomorrow the final results from this setup, because it's going to literally be totally different than what you see now. So this is where I started adding the red. Now, one of the things that I love about adding red is color evokes emotion. And that means that every color evokes something different with you guys. Sometimes red can be the color of love, the color of hate, but also the color of fire and passion. And I think for a guitar like this with Steve Vai, and especially this clothing that she's wearing, I think that passion and that fire, that really works well. Think about Passion and Warfare, Fire Garden, albums from Steve. But I don't want to lose that greenness in the headstock. And this is why I constantly let my model just change the guitar angle. Because as soon as you place the guitar differently, it can get too much red on the headstock, and that just blows away that whole green vibe of the guitar. And of course the mother of pearl inlays, it's just an amazing guitar to shoot. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this one. This was way, way too much red. As you can see here, it's way overexposed in the reds. The reason I'm doing this is because at one point, when you have your lighting set up, the one that's using the red gel was way on full power. So that means that I can't back it down. Oh, I can back it down, of course, but I can't give more power. And sometimes you need to balance it a little bit more. What I like to do is I would like to have my accent lighting at about 80% or preferably lower, but never on the lowest setting and never on the highest setting. My main light source, it doesn't really matter if it's on the highest or the lowest setting, because I can always play with that. But the accent lightings, and especially in this case, I want somewhere in the middle. The reason for this is very simple. Sometimes I look at a shot and I go like, oh, I really like this. Look at all that red. And let's be honest, this one is killer, right? This one is absolutely amazing. But then when I look at this one, I go like, ooh, a little bit too much red. This one, oh, way too much red. And then I find it very interesting to be able to shoot something like this, but also be able to just reach out, lower that strobe, and just shoot something with a little bit less red. And the nice thing is the more, oh, I love this one, the more you give your client to choose from, the more you have chances that the client will come back to you. Because if you just give your client this shot, the client will probably go like, oh, I really like this one. And maybe they will hire you again. But if you give them shots with this red, without the red, with a little bit more red, with overexposed red, with underexposed red, with deep red, with greens, the client can choose, and the client will highly recommend you also to other guys, like, hey, you have to get that photographer because he delivers more than he promises. Okay, I think we're ready for the next setup. Annemiek, are you ready to take over again?
Yeah.
We don't have any questions in the chat? No. Let me just take a little bit of a drink. And then before we start, I want to show you something. And I have to find where it is.
Is it about the open house?
No, it's not about the open house yet. It's about speedlights. Hey guys, Frank here, and we have a brand new tutorial for you guys. And it's called, well, you already see it in front of me, Speedlight Magic. And we all know those little strobes, right? But did you know that those strobes are incredibly creative? That you can do almost anything you want with them? Well, this is the video if you want to know more about the speedlights. We're going to talk about the techniques like high-speed sync, first curtain sync, second curtain sync. We're going to talk about fighting daylight, how to mix strobe, what is flash exposure compensation, what is zooming, and a lot more. But we're also going to talk about stuff that's really important for your workflow. What about the perfect remote controls? How about mounting those strobes on a stand? What is a boom stand? Why do you want to use it? And of course, what are my favorite modifiers? Well, if you think that's it, you're totally wrong. We also have a whole segment where we go into the studio with our model Nadine and we're going to talk about lighting setups, techniques behind those lighting setups, but most of all, how to create stunning images with only 2 speedlights. Does that sound interesting to you guys? It sure does to me. So join us on Speedlight Magic, available now. Okay, so this was the video about the speedlights. It's just been released. You can get it on our shop. So let me show you the link to the shop very quickly. There we go. And this one is absolutely amazing, the video. I kid you not, we shot it in 4K. It goes really in depth about the speedlight. And the thing was, I wanted to do this video a few years ago, and we actually filmed the whole video. The only problem was I wasn't satisfied with the results. I thought the camera viewpoints were a little bit too boring. So we just scrapped that whole project, and then COVID broke out, of course, and we didn't do anything. And in COVID, we actually released Light of the Classical Masters, also a great instructional video. And we actually forgot about the speedlight thing. And then at the end of Corona, I immediately had something like, hey, we need to do the speedlight thing. And because after Corona, you were so incredibly how do you call it? It's like a volcano that just builds up, and you have this cork on the top that just needs to get out, you know, and it just builds up, it builds up. And while that video was filmed, we actually literally erupted with creativity and stuff to tell you guys. So it's an incredibly in-depth look at speedlights, and you will be surprised what you can do with speedlights. By the way, you can also find them on at Skillshare at the moment. So we also have that video on Skillshare. And when you're a member of Calby 1, we actually filmed 3 new classes for Calby 1. 1 or 2 has already been released, and 1 will be released very soon. Those classes are also very, very cool, and those are all, everything I do for Skillshare, for the stuff that we sell, and Calby 1, all the videos are custom made for those streaming platforms. So if you watched all the videos on Calby 1, they are totally different from the videos on Skillshare. If you watch everything on Skillshare, they are approximately different from the stuff that you see in Digital Classroom. So I always try to differentiate that. Now the ones that on Skillshare you can actually buy in our store, because those are a little bit more the same. Okay, let me just go to the final setup. And for this one, we're going to switch over actually from our Hansel strobes, which I absolutely love, to our speedlights, the Nissin speedlights, and of course our Rogue magnetic system. So we're going to switch over to a more interesting viewing set of my face, and let's go. So, are you ready, Anouk?
Try to.
Okay. Let me first switch over the remote controls. Oh, you already did that? Awesome. Okay, so here we have speedlights. Now in this case, I want my model to be sitting down in the chair. So let's do totally different images, of course. And let's make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. Nice. Now, speedlights. Speedlights, system strobes, camera strobes, system strobes, whatever you want to call them, small flash, they're all the same for me. Every strobe that uses ETTL or HSS, so ETTL is metering through the lens and HSS is high-speed sync, for me falls in that same category. So that whole video can also be watched when you use, for example, Godox or, for example, Profoto or Ellingram. It doesn't really matter. Now, for this setup, I'm actually using Nissin strobes. This is the MG10. And the reason I'm using this one is because it runs on lithium-ion batteries. Now with lithium-ions you have to be a little bit careful because they recycle like crazy, but they also can heat up very much. So if you don't have a buffer in yourself, or a little bit of a break, don't use lithium-ions. With normal pen lights you can actually already overheat a strobe. With lithium-ions it goes really, really fast. So just be careful, don't shoot too much. And you don't need to shoot 100 images a second, right? Okay, it's also very important to remember, I'm very good at that, not, which strobe is what. And because I'm not really good at that, we actually use stickers. So this is number A, the first letter in the alphabet. And that's also because this is my most powerful strobe, and this is also the strobe that I love to use for example, the flash bender with the, yes, the strip light attachment. Now, the remote control is very, very simple to operate. You just turn it on, and then I can set up every single group separately, which I absolutely love, of course. Okay, so let's sit down. And in this case, I'm not going to meter the light. I'm going to explain in a second why I'm not going to do that. Okay, let me switch that over very quickly to off. There we go. It's on manual mode. 1/16. Let's just go down to 2.8. I'm just going to try something. As you can see here, no, it did work, but it's way too soft, of course. So let's just raise the output. Oh, one moment. In a week. If you place my trigger, put it all the way in. I already thought this is very little light on ISO 400. Okay, so let's try that again. There we go. That is way too much light on ISO 400. So let's go down. Let's go down to ISO 200. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now when I shoot it, it's okay, right? Yeah. Well, with speedlights, a lot of people shoot on ETTL. Let me show you what ETTL does. ETTL is metering through the lens. So let's switch over to ETTL. Now with ETTL, you can do overexpose and underexpose. So that means that you have the same thing that you do on your normal camera. You have EV, exposure compensation. When do you use EV? For example, if you shoot a snow landscape. If you don't use EV, exposure compensation, you will actually get an 18% gray snow. You don't want that, right? You want snow to be white. So what do? You overexpose by 2 stops, and that will make snow pretty white, depending, of course, if the sky is blue or white. You know, you have to figure that out. When you want to shoot something in the dark, for example, a cityscape, it's often too bright, so you have to underexpose. And that becomes a very big problem. And why is that? When I look at this set, there is a lot of contrast. You have that backdrop, you have the backdrop in the other side. So I have one dark backdrop, I have a lighter backdrop, I have a very dark clothing, I have a fair-skinned model, I have a dark guitar, I have green. There's not really something that's 18% gray there. And the camera will try to make it 18% gray. That's how the system works. So let's see how it works on ETTL. And now look at this, it will be perfect, of course. Yeah, there we go. So ETTL actually works like a charm in this case. But in most cases, ETTL will under or overexpose. It's never perfect. So even when you're using speedlights, I'm highly recommending you guys to use a light meter. The reason I'm not doing it during a live shoot is for the very simple reason I have to take the remote control off, use the light meter, put the remote control back on again. And I think during a live stream we want a little bit more speed. So you could use 2 remote controls. We only have 1 at the moment, so I'm not going to use the light meter at the moment. But I'm still going to shoot it on manual because ETTL, especially when you zoom in, you don't want varying light output. Okay, so I like the pose he's having. I want a little bit more wide angle, so I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'm going to use that wide angle a little bit. There we go. Now when I look at this, I go like, I don't know. She leans a little bit to the back. Do you agree? It just doesn't look like there's a lot of motion in the shot. And what is motion? You could call it gesture. I know a friend of us, Jay Micel, always calls stuff gesture. And I always figured out, like, what the hell does he mean with gesture? How can a building have gesture? Because gesture is a movement, right? And then it just hit me. You have to find angles. You have to find the way that you make something speak to you. And that can be in a building, for example, by tilting it. Or having a really dark sky and then using a very low angle to make it more daring, more dangerous. Or when you have the sun, get some of the reflection in the windows and make that building come alive. We do the same thing with the guitar, so I'm going to ask her to move a little bit more forward, yes. I'm going to choose a slightly lower angle, and there we go. And now you can see that I have to adjust my light a lot because he's coming forward. Again, with the light meter, this goes way faster. But in this case, I'm okay with it to do it like this. There we go, really like this. Can you look that way? Nice. And I'm only using the flash bender at the moment, the Frank Doro flash bender from Rogue with the strip light and grid attachment. It's a very cool light source. And I'm using nothing more. But when I look at the shot, I go like, oh, Frank, it could be so much more interesting, right? And this is why I love the magnetic system from Rogue. Now, we are the distributor again of Rogue, so I'm a little bit biased, of course. But the magnetic system contains of a few items, and recently we actually added a snoot. But this is the magnetic system. I'm using a dome, which makes the light omnidirectional, and under the dome, we have a blue gel. So it clicks together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use it as a conventional lens flare. Now, one of the cool things about lens flares is that I don't have to put it next to our model. I can actually put it a little bit in front of our model. So I'm not interfering with the set that much. So I'm going to place it here. It's omnidirectional, so I only have to change it towards my direction. Turn on the strobe. That always helps. There we go. And because it's a boom stand, I can actually move it a little bit like this. Well, I think this will be okay. Now, because I want to use lens flares, I'm not going to use my sun hood. And I'm going to use the black mist filter from K&F Concept. So this is an awesome filter. It's actually called Black Diffusion. I'm using a magnetic version, as you can see here. And we actually have a whole kit, the Frank Doro kit. It's available in the Benelux, where you find 1.4 diffusion filter, a 1.8, which I love to use for video. Because they're magnetic, you can also stack them, and you find a variable ND filter in a nice leather pouch. And we're just going to show you the pouch. So you have to switch over to that camera. And it's handmade, so every one is different. Awesome. Okay, go back to me. Okay, so we now have our main setup. So let me shoot that without the strobe. So this is our main setup. Now we're going to add the second one in. Ooh. And that's something I didn't calculate in. Annemiek, I need batteries for this one. Let me just hope that we have those. Yeah, the triple A's, the smaller ones. Sorry guys, in between I will put on my wooden shoes and do a little bit of a dance for you, but I don't have wooden shoes. Thank you. So we switch all the batteries. What's wrong, Chewy? Let me make sure that I put this in correctly. Yeah. Doesn't really show you how. And of course, if you can do it in two ways, it's of course always wrong first. Okay, let me see if this works. There we go. Awesome, aren't we super? Super team. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's turn A on again. There we go. Okay, everything is now on 1/16th power. That will never be the right setting, of course. Okay, so let's turn up B. Let's first turn up B a lot, like on almost full power. Oh, there we go. Now, because it's an omnidirectional light source, you immediately see that it's really aggressive. It grabs around everywhere. So we don't really want it like that. What we want it is a little bit more subtle. But I also think like, hey, you know what? When I look at those shots, I think it's really great if the light just hits our model slightly from the back, just feathering over my model. And then maybe lower the output just a little bit. And maybe steer that light. Well, okay, let's try that first. So if you can stand up just a little bit, I'm going to move the chair a little bit forward. Okay, you can sit down again. Oh, you have such an easy job. Okay, let's make that light come up all the way from the back. Aim it in the front and then just have a nice little kicker light from the back. And now, of course, I have to lower the output a lot. Now, the stand in the back I have to clone out later. But that's something that's very, very easy to do. And I'm not going to do full bodies anymore. I just want to have a little bit of a nice, well, close up. Because full bodies are nice, but sometimes you don't need it. Now, when I look at this shot, I go like, okay, interesting, but let's just lower your hand. Let's just place your hand on the armrest. That hand on the armrest. There we go. Yeah, that hand on the armrest. Op de leuning. Yes, there we go. Awesome. Really nice. So when I shoot from this angle, it gets a little bit too cramped for me. You know what I mean? So I'm now looking at how can I pose my model the right way. And I don't think you sit comfortably, right? Just put your back all the way to the back. Your tush, back, ass, whatever. And then lean forward. There we go. And maybe for the guitar, can I help you out?
Yeah.
Maybe just do it just like the way that you did before, like this. And just hold it like it's your boyfriend or something. Or maybe not in your case, maybe don't be too nice to it. Rock chick more. Yes, there we go. Okay, I'm going to try to get it nice in the frame. There we go, that we only use the final. Ooh, nice. There we go. Really love this. And the blue just gives me that nice little edge on the back. But what if you look at the shot and you go like, Frank, no, I don't really like the blue on the back. I like it more focused. And I go like, okay, no problem, no problem. It's a magnetic system. Let's take out the dome and let's use a grid. So Annelie, do you have a grid for me?
Of course. Of niet.
Or not?
Nee. Hier.
Ah, there we have.
It was magnet to something else.
Mm-hmm. That's the main thing with magnets. They can stick to anything. Okay, so let's take out the dome. Leave in the gel. And then just use a grid. But now, because I'm using a grid, I'm going to aim it way more at my model. Because now I want that light to be hitting her hair from the side. There we go. That looks great. And the nice thing about the dome, you can collapse it and just put it in your pocket if you want. It doesn't take up any space. Well, a little bit. But not too much. Okay. Awesome. Just lower the guitar just a little bit. More, 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 more. Yes, there we go. This looks great. The reason is otherwise you don't fit on the canvas. Okay, zoom in. There we go. Okay, let's get more blue in. There we go. This is too much. Let's go down. There we go. This I really like. And now maybe on the front just a little bit less to get a little bit of a mood. Ooh, there we go. Tilt your head just a little bit that way. Yes, perfect. You rock, girl. You're awesome. I really like this. Let's try a different angle. Nice. Okay, can you lower the guitar all the way? Just let it rest on the armrest. And just put your hands like, yeah, there we go. You get it. Love it. Wow, look at this. Rock chick. Nice. And now, of course, because we want a little bit more light on the guitar, we can just lower this one and feather it more towards the guitar. Okay. And that's the nice thing about lighting like this. With the speed lights, you have a very, very small area which you can use, and it's just always so cool if you just hit it right. Just gives you that really nice focused light quality, almost like a snoot. There we go. Ooh, love this one. Okay, cool. But I hear you going like, hey Frank, this looks nice, but it's... I would love to have more light on the front, and there's a reflection on your guitar. Yes, of course, we can still angle that light, of course, but I'm not done yet. When I look at this shot, I go like, you know, it's interesting, but I don't think that light from the back really gives me the look that I want. It's more accent lighting. It can be cool, but in this case, I don't think so. You remember what we did with the big lights, that we aimed it towards the ceiling? Let's do the same thing with this one. As our final setup, I'm going to show you something that I use a lot and that works like a charm. And it always works great. That's the weird thing. Some techniques sometimes work. This one always works great. But you do need something like the magnetic system for this, otherwise it won't work. Let me do it the right way. There we go. There we go. And boom stands are awesome for this. Okay, let's take the grid off, because we want less focused light nu. Now, nu is Dutch. There we go. Okay. First things first. I just wanted to see if this works. Let's raise the strobe a lot. So now it's all the way out of the frame, It's all the way up. And now because I don't have any lights behind my model, I can be a little bit more flexible with where I stand myself. There we go. And now we're going to pump up that blue gel. And there we go. So now you have the same thing that we did before, that little bit of a blue in the shot. Now if you go like, oh Frank, I like it, but, okay, I got it. Let's go to channel A. Turn channel A all the way down to not a 64th, but a 128th. That means that I'm going to, actually to ISO 800. Or 2.8, 400. And there you go. Oh, blue one didn't fire. Just wait a second for that one. Okay, there we go. So now we have way more blue. But in all honesty, when I look at the blue, it doesn't really mesmerize me the way that it did before, with the red one that really filled it in. And that's actually because I'm still figuring out my balance between the two lights. But it's also because I didn't want to use it this way. I want to use it differently. And I'm going to show you why. Remember that at first I had it set up really, really low. I'm going to do that again. So this is similar to the one with the red, a little bit less intense because it's blue. But watch this. And this is why we chose blue for this one. And I aim this all the way down. And I'm not going to use it on my model. I'm actually aiming it more towards me. I'm going to take my lens. And I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen. You see what's happening? That's a little bit too much. Now, because I have so much power more, I don't want to shoot on on ISO 800, of course, so I'm going to go up again. So I'm going to go to F30, oh sorry, on ISO 200 again back. Because now I need less output, so I can lower my ISO again. And of course erase the first strobe. Let me do a quick test shot. Because I want to make sure that my front light is correct. There we go. So this is only the front. Yeah, let's raise that a little bit. A little bit. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to place the second one in. So let's turn that one on. There we go. Let's lower that a lot to 128th. Okay, for this one, I want a real nasty look, like powerful. Okay, make sure that you see the dome and then take it out of the frame. And then you get something like this. Very, very subtle, nice, like a little bit of a light leakage on the bottom. If I move this a little bit more towards me, and I raise the output just a little bit, you get something that you sometimes call like light leakage. Ken je benen over elkaar? Dat is misschien mooier. Ja, mooiere lijn. Nicer lines, sorry. There we go. And now by moving my camera forward and backwards, so I was now shooting forward, I don't have any lens flare, and by shooting backwards, I have the lens flare. Now by changing that distance, I'm actually able to control the amount of lens flare. Okay, now we're going to finish this off. The tremolo has to be down. And let's just tilt your body a little bit that way. Make it a little bit more daring. Maybe, you know what? Can you sit on the armrest? Let me hold the guitar for you. This chair is very stable, so it should be doable. From the middle. Oh. So just sit on here. There your legs. Here your other part. Just don't stand on it and it should be okay. There we go. Awesome. Zit dat stabiel? Voor even? Jawel hè? And just hold it at the monkey grip again. Okay, let's first set up the main light again a little bit. Oh, I love this one. This is way better. And now just tilt towards the camera, if you are able. Yes, there we go. That's nice. Okay, let's raise this light just slightly towards here. There we go. I have this light here. This is going to give me a little bit of a kicker. Oh, this is so much better. Okay, this is without. And now I move my camera slightly back to capture that a little bit of a lens flare. There we go. And now I can add a little bit more mood in my shots. And of course by moving it, I can get it more in the middle. Or maybe even all the way in the side if I want to use more wide angle shots. And if we just raise the output a lot, I'm way more flexible by moving around. For example, now I can do it all the way here. But I think the higher shots are a little bit more interesting for this. You see, very, very subtle, but because I have it very close to myself, I can just raise up my boom arm, aim it towards myself, and there we go. So now I have total control over that light leakage. Oh, I really like this. Can you tilt your head a little bit like this? That's it. That's the one. That's the one. Love it. Nice. Chin down. There we go. Awesome. Love it. Great shots. That's it. Oh, wait for the blue. A little bit more blue. A little bit less. There we go. A little bit more. And somewhere in the middle. There we go. Love it. Great. Thank you so very much. Let's do the color checker shot. Now, for the color checker shot, I have to explain something. But let me first turn this one off. Okay. And let me take that one over for you, from you. Thank you so very much. And let's do the color checker shot and explain you guys why we do that. Okay, this is the new one. This is a duo color checker. I'm going to show you that in a second. Just hold it in front and just aim it towards the light a little bit. Awesome, thank you so very much. You're done. Thank you. Thank you. Claudia has left the building. Okay, so let me take my seat there. Any questions, Annemiek, on Facebook?
No.
Let's just go through here. Okay, the color checker. This is the new one. And this is called the Duo. And it's from Calibrite. And they actually listened to me. Now you can find it in a dark studio. Unless it can't be perfect right the first time, right? I would love to have fluorescent lighting, fluorescent stickers on both sides. So in a dark studio you can easily spot them, but this is already great. So what is the main advantage of the Duo? Now when you look at the normal color checker, it's aimed at photography, and they also have one that is aimed at video. Now in all honesty, for the photography one, this is the one with the red cord, I'm a really bad user because this I never use. And this I never use. But this I always use. And it's very simple because here I can also do white balance, and this is the part that's very important to get your profiling. So what is profiling? You have to realize that every color has three coordinates, an X, a Y and a big Y, hue, saturation and luminance. Now those three coordinates are fixed for a color space. So for Adobe RGB is fixed, for ProPhoto RGB, for sRGB is fixed. But in your camera RAW doesn't have any defined color space. Yes, it's camera RAW. So when you want to go into Photoshop, you have to realize that Photoshop doesn't work with RAW files. Photoshop works with TIFFs or JPEGs, and you would be crazy if you would be editing in anything less than TIFF 16 bits in Photoshop. So before you open up Photoshop, if you use, for example, Lightroom, or if you use camera RAW from Photoshop, you have to determine what is the output of my file. And there you determine Adobe RGB and, for example, TIFF 16 bits. And 16 bits is highly recommended if you do a lot of work, even if you don't do a lot of work. But that color space is defined. Now, when you shoot it with your camera, if you shoot a Canon, Nikon, or Sony, or Fuji, or a Leica, or whatever, those colors are different from Adobe RGB. So you need something like this to create a camera profile. And that camera profile makes it possible to translate your camera file, your camera RAW file, let's call it Sony RAW, into Adobe RGB without losing any detail. So you don't clip any fields, you don't clip any colors, your saturation is correct. You also have to remember that actually I did it a little bit wrong today, because when you use a color checker, you should use a light meter. Again, as I mentioned, those 3 coordinates, x, y, and y. Now, all those 3 coordinates are interactive with each other, but not one-on-one. It's cumulative. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It means that it changes over your distance, or in other words, if you change it a little bit, it will have an impact on all the other ones. And if you realize that when you lower the luminance of a color, you change the saturation of that color, then you already understand that when you shoot a color checker, it's very, very important. It's actually vital to use a light meter, because if you mess this up, you are in big trouble for the very simple reason colors don't look right. If you have to change anything on your color checker shot, do it again. If you overexpose or underexpose your color checker shot, do it again. If it's perfect, that's the one that you want to use. Okay, so what is the Duo? The Duo is actually a new color checker. We have the part that I always use and one for white balance. Great. I'm not going to use it, but it's great that it's there because a lot of people only use that one. But when you open it up on the other side, and this saves you a boatload of money, this is the video version. So now you can set your whites, your gray levels and your blacks, and you create a color profile. And for video, it's slightly different than for photography. So that means that you now have one color checker. Instead of buying 2 and paying a lot of money, you buy only 1 and pay a little bit less money. I highly recommend the Calibrite software for the very simple reason the software works. And they also have color analyzers. I'm using the Display One Pro. And when you buy a monitor, it's incredibly important that you do the same thing. So we use a color checker to get the colors right from the camera, to get it right into Adobe RGB. But you also have to calibrate your monitor. Now your monitor works with a different profiling. Your monitor tries to get, especially with the Adobe RGB monitors, as close as possible to the color space Adobe RGB. And for that we use a so-called color analyzer. Now, there are different ways to calibrate your monitor. One of the ways is actually doing it the old-fashioned way by opening up, for example, X-Rite software or Calibrite software, and then do the calibration, and it creates an ICC profile in your computer. And every time that you recalibrate, it changes that ICC profile and you get an updated version, in other words, better, because your monitor degrades over time, but also your analyzer, so watch out for that. So, why BenQ monitors? BenQ monitors makes it possible to also calibrate not in the computer, but actually inside the monitor. So you connect your analyzer still to the computer, of course, and to software, Palette Master, but the software doesn't make an ICC profile in the computer. It actually creates a fully loaded tab inside the monitor. The main advantage is that it has way higher bit depth. So in other words, in the computer, you can make gradients nice. In the monitor, you have way more options, so the gradients will be much nicer. And also because you're doing a hardware calibration, we call it hardware calibration, it's also more accurate when you, for example, connect an iPad Pro. And this is one thing that a lot of people forget. The iPad Pro cannot, I repeat, an iPad Pro cannot be calibrated. The HDMI output of an iPad Pro is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good standard. We metered it and it's almost flat. So that means if I calibrate my monitor, my BenQ monitor, with a 0 profile in, for example, macOS, I can literally, after that, disconnect the monitor and connect it to my iPad Pro and get something that's close to it. It will never be the same because also the output, light output, everything works together in a calibration. But it comes much closer than just connecting a monitor. So overall, always get a monitor that is hardware calibratable. I can't stress that enough. It's really, really important. Okay, so when we go to the images, you can see that even with speedlights, you can create something that's absolutely awesome. But just because it's speedlights doesn't mean you have to feel limited. It's actually way easier with speedlights to get something that's really close. As you can see here, I have that light really close to myself. And because it's a speedlight, it doesn't stand in my way. Because it's a speedlight, it's very easy to move around. And because we use that magnetic system from Rogue, which I highly, highly recommend. It's small, you have a grid, you have a dome, you have all the gels and color correction gels, and you have that snoot that you can use in 8 different configurations. So in a very, very small package, you have literally softboxes, grids, strip lights, and a snoot. And the strip lights, let me explain that very quickly. If you use the snoot, you have to use a diffusion panel to make it round, because the speed light, of course, is rectangular. If you use it on a round strobe, you don't need to worry about that. But if you use it on a speed light, think about this. Your speed light is rectangular. If you don't use that diffusion panel, what do you get? Yes, you get a rectangular snoot. And that is very, very similar to a strip light. I made a video about that. You can look it up on our YouTube channel. The snoot will literally blow you away. And I think if the magnetic system didn't surprise you yet or didn't convince you yet, the addition of the snoot will. Because literally, as soon as the snoot was released, we saw the sales going up a lot in the Netherlands. So make sure that you check out that magnetic system. Okay, we have some cool things, of course, that we shot. And as you can see here, I'm just experimenting with the distance. The only thing you have to do is move your camera closer towards that dome or further away. The closer you get, the less light will hit it. That sounds weird, right? But remember, when I say close, I mean this is the dome. This is you get a lot of lens flare. This is you get way too much lens flare. And the more you move here, the less lens flare you get. And that sounds weird, but remember that the dome is omnidirectional. So that means that it spreads the light around everywhere. So the more you are further away, the more you get from that light. And the more you get here, the more you get from that side of the light. And remember, side of the light is softer, side of the light is less intense. So the more you get forward, the more you actually get that beautiful lens flare in and the more control. Another thing that happens when you use a system like this is that you can also use it from the sides, from the top, from this side or from the bottom, just depending on what you want. And with the studio strobe, it's a little bit more difficult. Okay, we have some, of course, some very important things for you guys. In between, I'm just going to show you very quickly what it is without the blue. As you can see here, it's okay. I'm still surprised what you can do with just a flash bender. It's just insane. I love the quality of light. It is that quality of light that, if you look here, you see that it's razor sharp. And I think a lot of, especially beginner photographers, they don't realize that the contrast in your lighting isn't Photoshop. It's lighting. The smaller the light source, the more contrast you get in your lighting. The more contrast you get in your lighting, if you use it correctly, the sharper the images will look. Try to shoot something like this with a big softbox. Of course, everything is more evenly lit. But when you zoom in, you will see that the eyelashes are just a little bit softer than when you use a smaller light source. The nice thing about the flash benders is that we can use it without the grid attachment. Then we have a broader subject. But when we use the grid attachment, there's also a small diffusion panel in. And what I always do is I just aim it slightly away from the model. So I'm not aiming it straight at our model, just slightly away, giving her just, the hotspot is just barely missing her. And that gives me that beautiful high contrast look without being too harsh. As you can see here, I just love that look. And especially when you start using a key and F filter, like that black mist filter or black diffusion filter, you get this really nice glow over the image. If I take the filter off, you will see a little bit of glow on the bottom, but it won't go all the way. And I like to do it all in camera. Okay, a few household things, because Emmeloord is pointing towards me that I'm going overtime, and she's absolutely right. This Sunday, if you are in the Netherlands, make weird thing. So on January 22, we have our open house. What is our open house? You are welcome in our studio. You do have to email us to register. And what we do during that day is we're going to show you our products. We're going to show you our studio. And at 10 o'clock, I'm doing a live shoot with a model of about, let's say, half an hour, 45 minutes. And you can ask anything you want. I'm going to show you the products. I'm going to show you the backdrops. But most of all, I'm going to give you a lot of tips how you can easily set up your lighting with 1 or 2 strokes and create killer images. I'm really looking forward to it. We have some really great ideas for that one. So at 10 o'clock we have a live shoot and at 2 o'clock we have a live shoot. So make sure you register for that one. It's free, of course. And we have another one, and that's this on our social media. So we're going to have a very short model. Am I going to use speed lights for a short model?
Yes,
Yes, we're not going to
definitely.
use big strobes because otherwise the model is too short. Are we going to shoot a gnome? Should I bring a
No, she's a pretty lady.
should I bring a guitar for the model, or is this too big or too small?
Too small.
It's too
yeah.
small, okay. I'm just kidding, of course. It's going to be a great model. We're going to bring speed lights, so we're going to do everything with speed lights over there. That was the request, so we're going to honor that, of course. And speed lights are cool, right? So make sure you save those dates. The next digital classroom, it's up to you guys. What do you guys want to see?
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's
it's
not up to
not
you.
up to you. Okay,
No,
let me tell you.
It's up to Nadine.
It's up to Nadine. So next digital classroom is Nadine.
Yes, and it is, well, my phone is not working.
Your phone is not working. Yeah, what else is new?
It's in February.
February.
Yes, it will be 15. February 15.
February 15th.
Just after Valentine's Day.
Okay, just after Valentine's Day, so who knows, their love is in the air, or not. I really don't know. So I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe you have questions, leave them in the comments below, or just email me the questions and we will incorporate them in the next digital classroom. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please tell your friends about it. And we want to end up with something that's totally not, and I mean totally not photography related. If you are a little bit, well, let me call it this way. If you are a little bit awake during this broadcast, you probably already got a little bit of an idea that I really like guitars and I really like playing music. What you maybe don't know is that my career actually started with owning a music recording studio, which didn't last long, to be honest, but that was not my fault. But it just didn't work out. So we started another company, and of course that grew into the photography business. Thanks to our friend Scott Kelby, a few years ago I started playing guitar again. Thank you so very much, Scott, because playing guitar really enriches your life, just like having a cool labradoodle and a great wife. It really enhances your life. And music is of course something that's really great if you're, well, if you're a little bit sad or a little bit happy, music always works. You know what they say, like, music was my first love, music will be my last. But what do you do with all the stuff that you record? Well, in the past I used SoundCloud for it, and sometimes I uploaded something and I showed you guys, and that was great. But, of course, we got a lot of questions from guys, hey, I don't have SoundCloud, what is SoundCloud? So we decided, and I want to make one thing 100% certain, I'm not going to be a rock star, I'm not aiming to be a rock star, I don't even aim for royalties, whatever. It's just a hobby, but we decided to do it right this time. So when you go to your favorite streaming service, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, whatever, type in my name, Frank Doorhoff, that's my name, maybe you know it already, and you will find at least 2 songs at the moment which are released, and we are working on more. We're also looking at collaborations between people, because due to Corona we do have a lot of sick people during the workshop, so that also means that we have a little bit more time to do stuff with music, and then uploading stuff and sharing it with the world is of course an awesome way. And now you can also find it on Spotify. I would really appreciate it if you follow me there and just listen to the tunes a little bit. Again, we have no high expectations for it, but hey, it's just fun to share music, right, and work with people. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. This was it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you again next time. Stay safe outside and inside, of course, also. Stay safe outside. And we hope you have a great 2023. Thank you so very much for watching.